Agatha All Along, episode 5. This really is turning into a killer show. I mean, quite literally, people are being killed, but it is turning into an awesome show. The big reveal at the end of this was awesome, and we are diving right into spoilers for episode 5, so if you want to avoid them, you've been warned. So much happened in this show, and yeah, it does look like Teen was in fact playing everybody all along. He finally reveals his true self at the end of this episode, and he even wears a crown like his mother does. Now notice he snaps when Agatha finally mentions his mother, who of course is the Scarlet Witch, because we know that Teen is Billy Maximoff, reincarnated, and I believe that he is now trying to bring his mother back. Everybody wants something from the road. Agatha obviously wants her powers back, so did the other witches. They wanted to turn their luck around, and originally, Teen said that he wanted power. He played it off like he didn't really have any, that he was kind of just learning. He used a spell book, and he only really knew analog magic that you had to physically do, which we have seen throughout this show, like Alice drawing the circles around others to protect them, or Jennifer healing his wound with a spell physically. But as it turns out, he knows magic, and he knows it very, very well, which comes as little to no surprise since he is the son of the Scarlet Witch. Also, I am fully convinced that Aubrey Plaza's character, Rio Vidal, is indeed Death. There were so many signs in the last episode and this episode as well. And there are many important parts to go over, like the connection between Agatha and Death and her son, Nicholas Scratch. They also changed the Salem 7's origin story for the MCU, but it does work given what we already know about Agatha and what they have explained here. So a lot to dive into, but let's focus on Teen first, who is now definitely revealed to be Billy. Now, I will say I am super bummed out that Alice died. Maybe she's not completely dead. After all, Death/Rio was nowhere to be found at the end. And I've heard some theories that maybe she stayed behind to possibly resurrect her or save Alice in some way, shape, or form, since she is Death. And I hope this is the case, but sadly I think it's to get her body, because if you remember, when Agatha forced Rio to kind of tell her her plan, she said Agatha kills and then she collects the bodies. So I'm pretty sure that's what she's doing, staying behind. Now, Agatha takes the powers of Alice, which in turn kills her, but they completed the trial, so she leaves. Once she's back on the road, she tests to see if she can actually use magic now, and she can, and I actually think that this is why she kind of knows who Teen really is now. She totally could have known the entire time, but I'm guessing that since she got a little bit of magic back, she could probably sense things, supernatural things, and sense magic and kind of where that magic comes from. And since the Scarlet Witch is such an anomaly, and Teen is her son, he has some Scarlet Witch DNA inside of him, and Agatha could probably sense it. She probably kind of guessed it before, but until she got her magic, she wasn't able to know for sure. Now, it is important to note that it doesn't seem like her magic is fully back. It doesn't seem like it's there super strongly. And then Teen runs out and he starts yelling at Agatha about killing Alice, but she says she couldn't control it. And she does look like she's being honest when she says that, and he even comes back and says, "Don't lie to me," and she says, "I'm not." So maybe she actually couldn't control it and didn't mean to kill Alice. It did seem like she was kind of bonding with the other witches, so I do believe she's actually telling the truth here. Now, when Teen says killing other witches, that's not what he wants to do, Agatha gets real creepy, and big shout out to Kathryn Hahn for playing this character so well. She gets this smile on her face, revealing that she knows. She very creepily goes up to his ear and says, "Are you sure?" She then takes a step back. Teen looks very confused, very panicked, it seems. And if you take a look at Agatha's face, when she looks at him, she almost gets kind of disgusted that he is the Scarlet Witch's son, because obviously she hates the Scarlet Witch based on what happened in WandaVision. Then she just drops the line, "You're so much like your mother." And again, I believe that Agatha thought that perhaps he was her son or the Scarlet Witch's son. And then when Rio confirmed it's not your son, she probably knew that it was the Scarlet Witch's son. Now, if you're not aware, I'll catch you up super quickly. In the comics, Wanda does have two kids, Billy and Tommy, the ones that we saw in WandaVision, and she does lose those kids. She finds out that they were actually parts of Mephisto's soul, and he ends up taking them back and she loses her kids. However, later on, her 2 kids are reincarnated, and eventually they realize that they are the reincarnated kids of Wanda and Billy and Tommy reunite. And that is what we believe is happening here in Agatha All Along. Teen is actually Billy, the reincarnated son of Wanda. And there is actually a little interesting Easter egg when they do the Ouija board. When asked what was on the back of the paper, he says ages 3 and up. And it's really interesting because technically him reincarnated would be about 3 years old, because that's when the events of WandaVision took place, about 3 years ago. And it seems like he clearly knows he is the son of the Scarlet Witch, since he does end up putting on the same type of crown that she has. So I'm assuming that his plan this entire time was to go down the witch's road to get to the end, to get what he desires the most, and that is his family back, his mother and his brother, Tommy, aka Speed. And this entire time, he's basically been playing dumb. He's been doing this because he needed a coven to get on the path. And he knew that Agatha wanted to go down the path to get her powers back. He also knew that she's been down the path before and would know how to navigate it. So he plays dumb in order to get a coven to go on the path, because that's what you need. You have to have a coven. They've established that rule. But then to top it all off, I actually think he put the sigil on himself as to not be suspicious to others. That way, when they asked who he was, he didn't have to really come up with anything. He could simply talk and it wouldn't come out. Nobody could hear it. It's actually quite genius. And as Agatha explained, the sigil also works on the person who did it. So technically, if he used the sigil on himself, he wouldn't remember that he did it. It actually is pretty genius. Now, as far as what powers Billy, or Wiccan, has in the comics, that's his superhero name, they have pretty similar powers, and he is incredibly strong because his mother is the Scarlet Witch. And if you notice, even when he's using his magic, his finger movements, his hand movements are pretty similar to Wanda's. Now, what's interesting is that I think he's kind of saving people at the end here, possibly, because there are more trials left, trials that the other witches have to go through, and they need to complete those trials to get through the witch's road, to get to the end, to get what you want. And he knows this. And yes, he probably acted emotionally there at the end, but let's also keep in mind that the Salem 7 are coming for everybody, and they are a big threat, but he knows he needs all of the witches to get to the end. So I think he might have thrown them in that quicksand type gook, maybe to save them while he goes and he handles the Salem 7 himself. Just a theory. I know he was pretty mad and he hates Agatha, obviously, for what she did to his mom, but a part of me thinks that maybe he was indeed trying to save them just a little bit. We'll see what happens. So it's revealed here, he's the Scarlet Witch's son. Agatha knows that, and he is a lot more powerful than he let on, and he has magical abilities, unlike most of the others. But now let's go to death. There are a lot of very interesting moments with Rio, who again is pretty much all but confirmed to be death. The first interesting moment with Rio in this episode is that she defends Agatha for killing her coven in the beginning when Lilia is telling the story. This shows that she really does care for Agatha, but I believe that there's something else going on here. Yes, she does want her, but I think she also wants her for something different. So they go into the next trial and a Ouija board pops out, and they obviously realize they have to Ouija. So Teen reads the rules. Number 1, do not use the board alone. Number 2, do not speak over each other. 3, do not taunt the spirits. 4, and this is the interesting one, do not ask about death. This is a very interesting one because I believe this is specifically a rule to prevent Agatha from asking questions about Rio, not about how some people died, but specifically about the character death, Rio. They are clearly tied up in something that happened in the past, which I believe has to do with the death of her son, Nicholas Scratch. If Rio is death, and I'm pretty sure she is, that means she would have taken Agatha's son, and in a previous episode, she explained that she has a scar, and that scar is a person that she hurt. She had to do something that she didn't want to do, but had to do, and that hurt a person, and I believe that thing that she had to do was take away Agatha's son, therefore Agatha being the person that she hurt. And that was very clear in that scene that Agatha was indeed the person that she hurt. Teen finishes the rules. 5, always end your session with goodbye. And 6, do not under any circumstances remove your hand from the planchette. If you do so, a spirit will be released, which is what ends up happening. But first, Agatha fakes it, and she very intentionally does not start the Ouija board. If you notice, the first time she starts it where she fakes it, she starts off by saying Mother Maiden Crone. But when they realize she's playing and they realize they have to go on, she finally does it right, and she starts it by saying, Maiden, Mother, Crone. She intentionally mixed up the order the first time to not start it. But once they started, enter the second huge indicator that Rio is death. Agatha asks who is with us tonight, and they spell out death. Then Rio gives us a big laugh, knowing that, yeah, she's there. Death is literally there with them. It didn't say the dead are with them. It specifically mentioned death. So they continue, and the spirits say that they want to punish Agatha. Agatha takes her hand off the board, which is a rule that should not be broken, because then a spirit comes, and that's what happens. She gets possessed, and then the spirit actually comes as a ghost. Then when the ghost pops up, notice Rio/Death says, that is a ghost. I hate ghosts. And there's probably a big reason she does, and that is because she is death, and she is supposed to bring those spirits to the next realm. But ghosts are spirits who do not go. So if you're death, yeah, ghosts probably piss you off. Another huge indicator. Now this ghost is revealed to be Agatha's mother. The next interesting part is that her mother says, leave Agatha with me, finish the road without her. And when she says leave her with me, Death gets really mad. She says no, and she screams, no way. Jen says, a minute ago you were ready to slit her throat, but then Rio says, yeah, but her mother can't have her. And there's a big reason, I believe, for what she is saying and why she's so defendant of Agatha. I believe Rio, who is Death, wants Agatha's spirit. She wants to take Agatha. After all, we already know from the very first episode that she does indeed want to kill Agatha, and the two of them also have a romantic past as well, and I'm assuming the reason that Death liked Agatha so much is because Agatha killed a lot of people, therefore giving Death a lot of spirits. Causing Death would probably really make Death happy. But at the end of it all, I do believe that when Agatha dies, she wants her spirit, and that is the whole reason she's kind of there right now. And that's why she says you can't have her. She wants her for herself. Now the ghost jumps inside of Agatha, and sadly Alice uses her powers to defend Agatha, which was successful, but then Agatha takes her powers, therefore killing her. It kind of looked like Teen was going to save the day because the Ouija board was going crazy, and it was Nicholas Scratch trying to communicate who is Agatha's son. And since it was Nicholas Scratch communicating from the dead, that does mean he is indeed dead. But as it turns out, that was the actual trial. Agatha was supposed to face her son. Teen yells Nicholas Scratch out loud, and Agatha stops taking Alice's powers. But unfortunately, it was too late, or at least it seems. Now what's interesting is Agatha leaves first, but then Rio gives her a very interesting look and then looks back at the body. And again, we know she's Death, but in this moment right here, I can't determine if she is going to maybe try to save Alice or simply do her job as Death and kind of take her to the next place. Let me know what you think is actually happening here in the comments. I do believe probably next episode they reveal that Rio is Death. Now the other thing we have to talk about is the Salem 7. In the comics, the Salem 7 are actually the daughters of Nicholas Scratch, Agatha's son. So they are actually the granddaughters of Agatha. They obviously changed that here in the MCU. But again, it kind of fits the story. Agatha killed their parents, so they want to kill her. In the comics, that's kind of how it works. Agatha kind of banishes her son, and they want to bring him back, and they want to get Agatha. So not too far off. But there is one last thing we have to talk about. Her mother, in ghost form, says that Agatha was born evil. And this brings me back to thinking about Mephisto. Maybe her mother had some type of a deal with Mephisto when Agatha was born. That's why she was quote unquote born evil here. We know that Mephisto is going to continue to be a looming presence in the MCU. Marvel Studios has actually already confirmed that in interviews. So perhaps Mephisto had something to do with Agatha's birth, her being evil, and maybe she really did trade her son for the Darkhold, in which then Rio/Death had to take her son. I'm sure that is the big story that is waiting for us that will be revealed in future episodes. In the meantime, let me know your thoughts about Agatha All Along episode 5 in the comments down below. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you can stay up to date on the other episodes and of course the MCU. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.